You're listening to Plants and Politics with Gina Bonanno-Lemos. If you're ready to hear the truth about both sides of the aisle, what's really going on in America, and how big money interests prevent change to keep you sick, broke, and desperate, then play on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Plants and Politics. This is Gina. I want to talk about a few different subjects that are all related, really. First of all, I want to provide an update on Martin Gugino. This is the 75-year-old man who was viciously pushed backwards, who fell and stumbled and fell and cracked his head open as a result of the violence and brutality of the police in Buffalo, New York. So two officers in their early 30s, I believe, pushed the man when he walked up simply to return a helmet to them. And he literally cracked his head open. So his attorney has confirmed that he is still unable to walk. This is, I believe, 2 weeks out from his attack by police when he was doing nothing wrong. And he literally did crack his skull open. So for anyone out there still trying to push these conspiracy theories about him, which the President of the United States actually did, he was not a violent person. He was not a member of Antifa. He's actually someone who has spent his whole life fighting for the rights of others and poor people. So 75-year-old man still in the hospital, suffered a fractured skull and still cannot walk. So horrible, horrible. The reason I bring him up in this podcast is because I also want to talk about police reforms. Trump just announced and made a big to-do about signing a police reform bill. Honestly, it's really not worth the paper it's written on. He talks about creating a national database of police officers who do horrible things, who commit violence and, harm the public. Okay, great, but it's all voluntary. On top of that, we've seen what happens. I mean, these officers who assaulted Mr. Gagino were quickly offered jobs in Florida. So these two officers were fired, rightfully so, after they assaulted Mr. Gagino. And then within a week, not only did their fellow officers revolt and not walk off the job, but they resigned from that task force. But in addition to that, they were promptly offered jobs in Florida. So it doesn't matter. You can have all the databases you want, but clearly police in this country find no problem. They have no problem and find nothing wrong with assaulting even 75-year-old elderly men. They think that's great. Yeah, those are the guys I want working with me. That's who I want on my team. So, and if you haven't seen the video, I highly recommend you go watch it and judge for yourself. And then go watch the other videos of how their fellow officers stood outside the jail and cheered for them when they were released. This is the mentality. They do not give a shit. You can be a total asshole. You can be violent. You can be vicious towards peaceful protesters, towards anyone, really. Unarmed men, women, and children, nothing happens. In fact, you're applauded for it and you're offered another job. Where else in the country does that happen? Seriously, if you or I acted that way, we would never find work again. So it's just disgusting how they act, how they're treated after committing acts of violence. And, another thing in Trump's police reforms was banning chokeholds. Again, totally voluntary. So when you're making things like a database of violent offenders and banning chokeholds voluntary, but yet the culture and the mood and the sentiment is we don't really give a damn, what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing is going to come of this. It's all for show. It's all because Trump wants to get reelected in November. And, to be honest, nobody's doing anything across the board. I mean, you've got the Democrats with their Kenty cloths making fools of themselves and putting on shows. You've got, mayors painting Black Lives Matter on the sidewalk or on the roadway, but then saying that she wants to increase the police budgets. It's all total theater, total show, total bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. They're not going to do anything really reformative. They're not going to defund police departments on a national level. So clearly, this needs to be handled city by city, state by state. Activists need to continue, the protests need to continue, and the pressure needs to continue because nationwide, they're not going to do anything. Right. And the only thing that will happen as a result of these police reforms, if states, if different municipalities refuse to comply with these reforms that Trump is proposing, the only thing that happens is they risk some of their funding. Well, since some of them are overfunded anyway, they don't give a damn. So as Cenk Uygur talks about on The Young Turks, often cops are taught better to be judged by 12 than carried out by 6. And that's their mentality. And, it goes back to the old proverb that if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? Um, People are going to do what they know, what they feel is best, what they've been taught. And unfortunately, this is what they've been taught. So really, where a lot of this falls apart, and the one law, if nothing else, this is something that needs to be changed. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court just ruled a day or two ago that they will not look at this law. They will not take this up and consider this. So in 1974, the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights was enacted. And what it does is it protects officers from investigation and prosecution, right? And this is anything involving their official duties. It also gives them privileges in accordance with due process that and privileges that aren't afforded to average citizens. So they get more rights than an average citizen based on their conduct, right? As long as it was done over the course of their job, they're given a pass on a lot of it. And so one of the things that falls under this Bill of Rights is the qualified immunity rule. So qualified immunity, if you're not familiar with this, it's a legal mechanism, and it's used not just for police officers, but for all government employees. And it basically protects them from any wrongdoing during the course of their job. So imagine if you or I had that. Imagine if there was a blanket federal law that protected us from any harm we did, as long as we're doing it during work hours, as long as we're doing it as a matter of course of our job. That's insane. Okay. I mean, even doctors have to have their own private insurance in case of malpractice. Why do these people get blanket immunity from prosecution? Because they're public servants. We are their employers. We pay their salaries, literally. Why are we also protecting them? This is insane, and it needs to end. Now, there's a way to fight qualified immunity, right? If you take someone to court, let's say you take a cop to court, here's what you have to prove. It is such a high bar, it is almost impossible to clear. So you as the plaintiff would not only have to show that another case identical to yours has been brought to court. So you would have to prove that exactly what happened to you has happened to someone else. Doesn't sound that hard, right? No, no. It also has to have happened in the same jurisdiction. So it would have to happen, the same exact thing that happened to you would have had to happen to someone else where you live. It's total insanity. And how many people have the money and the time and the wherewithal to take things to court? It's just absolutely ludicrous. So Reuters news outlet found that from 2015 to 2019, there were 252 excessive force cases that were brought to the courts. Police were granted qualified immunity in more than half of those cases. So even though they had done something wrong, even though they used excessive force, more than half of those cases were dismissed based on this qualified immunity rule. From just 2017 to 2019, the courts gave police a pass on 57% of the cases brought before the court. Just complete insanity. You have a complete abdication of duty. You have complete injustices taking place. And because of this law, they are completely and totally exonerated and given a pass, and then sent out there to continue policing in these violent, forceful, inappropriate ways. So one example they gave in this article that I read, and I really highly recommend that everybody go and read this article. It was in Business Insider. It was actually online, businessinsider.com, and the article is titled, "What is Qualified Immunity? Police Accountability Law 2020." So in it, they give several different examples, but this one was just horrific. So in 2013, cops were called out to respond to reports of a Black man who had a gun and he was shooting mailboxes in a residential area. Not people, he was shooting at mailboxes, okay? Cops show up as they're telling the guy who's shooting at the mailboxes, who has an actual weapon, they're telling him to put the gun down. In the meantime, another man, completely different man, not involved whatsoever with what's going on and what they were called out for, 25-year-old kid, rides by on a bike. His name was Gabriel Windsor. Totally minding his own business, rides by on a bike. He has a toy gun in his belt. Not a real gun, not shooting it, not doing anything wrong, just literally riding by on his freaking bike with a toy gun. Within 6 seconds of seeing him, not the guy shooting at the mailboxes, but Gabriel, the cops start firing at him. Within 6 seconds, they shot 17 times at this poor kid who was minding his own business riding on his bike. 4 of those 17 shots landed, and he died on the scene. Now, this went to court, and even though a court ruled that his murder was unconstitutional, that they did not have the right to fire at him given the circumstances, under the qualified immunity laws, the police were given a pass and they all walked. And we wonder why people are so freaking livid right now that they're out burning down buildings. And I will say it again for anyone who hasn't listened to any of my other podcasts. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, I'm okay actually with them burning down the police station. I'm not okay with them burning down businesses, burning down people's livelihoods, harming people. That's not okay. But I understand it. I understand the rage. I understand that this has been going on for so damn long, and people are getting absolutely no compensation, no justice. Nothing changes. These cops literally get away with murder over and over and over again, and nothing is done. So yeah, people are at their wits' end. They are done with this shit, and it is disproportionately occurring with Black and brown people. These things happen disproportionately to Black and brown people. So yes, it does happen with white people. I've read cases of police killing white people inappropriately without cause, that they didn't have weapons, that they were not under any threat. And that is wrong too. But it happens far more with Black and brown people. Thus, the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not to say that other lives don't matter, but when it is being ignored, when it occurs with Black and brown people more often, that's why there's a movement. That's why there's a slogan. That's why this was created. So we need to get rid of this qualified immunity. It is complete and utter bullshit. We should not be giving blanket immunity to people that we pay to protect us, who are then harming us, and then they get to walk. It's insanity. So spread the word, guys. This has to change. This is the one thing that absolutely must be removed, taken down. It should not exist. It should not have ever been put in place. I think if you're going to do the job, you want to be a cop, then man up, or woman up. You should be liable. You should be held responsible for your actions while you're on the job, while we as taxpayers are paying your damn salary. We should be able to hold you accountable. And if you're not happy with that, if you are so unsure that you can keep your part of the bargain, that you can toe the line and do the right thing, then don't take the job. Don't become a cop. But if you're a good person and you know that you're there for the right reasons and you don't plan on using excessive force or harming people unnecessarily, then you should have no problem with not having blanket immunity. That's my thoughts. That's my opinion. But I think a lot of people will see it the same way. So as always, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get the word out there and get rid of these absolutely archaic and nonsensical laws. Okay. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.